Just what you guys said, right up there. Yeah.
Really?
It's a little bit. It's kind of a.
Discombobulated?
Yeah, that went up there. Look at it. They even spelled it right. Discombobulated. Thanks, Christian.
Please rise as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody, to our December 1st City Council meeting. We begin each council meeting with our open comment period. This is an opportunity for anyone from the public to speak on items that we will not be taking a separate public hearing on later in the agenda. Each person has up to 2 minutes to speak for a total of 20 minutes. I will be keeping track by both the stopwatch on the wall to the left of me and the stoplight here right in front of the dais here. I'd also request that each speaker be concise to allow more people to speak during the designated time. Participants are further encouraged to limit comments generally to topics that are within the scope and jurisdiction of the council's ability to affect policy. Council members and staff do not respond to your comments during public comment, but will instead follow up on any specific requests separately. If you have materials to share with the council, please give them to the city clerk, who is to the right of me, and she will distribute it to council members. And at this point, I will invite you up in the order in which you signed up. First up is Casey McGregor. Oh, yep, there we go.
Hello, Council. Casey McGregor. I believe licensed business owners are the backbone of our community. I've heard politicians on both sides of the political spectrum discussing enforcements to move political agendas. Removing the judicial branch from the procedure of licensure enforced is not trivial. Most important is when a business itself is put at risk. So I ask the council to consider amending the authorization for licensed enforcement via an administrative alternate to add the limitations that if a business is put at risk, the clerk's office must go through the courts and not use the expedited administration track, requiring the clerk to consider the implications of the enforcement before acting is part of the point. By federal constitution guarantee, the people are not to be deprived by government action of our property without due process of the law, and licenses are recognized property interests in protected under the Constitution. See Wayne Lefebvre. It is furthermore proper for council to reconsider and amend the licensure changes as the passage was not executed properly, as the substance of the item was changed without necessary action. The original proposed action considered of 17 business types, and the clerk removed gambling licenses from the administration enforcement, making it a list of 16. Council rules match Robert's rules, and thus the action was improperly executed. In revising this matter to correct, the council should adopt a limitation that the clerk's office should revert to the actual court procedures if a business is reasonably at risk of undergoing the enforcement measure Cartwright has stated through the purpose that is mostly about prosecuting small fines. A business owner could be shuttered with only limited appeal as means of any examination from a court.
Thank you, Ms.
It is
McGregor.
a fair enough principle that you should be able to see an actual judge before losing your business.
Thank you. This is our open comment period. Anyone wishing to be heard, please step forward. Anyone wishing to be heard, please step forward. Seeing no one, we will close the public comment period. And Clerk Queso, could you please call the roll?
Good evening. Councilmember Keen.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Wall.
Here.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Here.
Councilmember Palmer.
Here.
Councilmember Doring.
Here.
Council President Schubring.
Here.
Mayor Norton.
Present.
Thank you. Next up, we have the City Administrator's Report. Administrator Zelms.
Thank you, Council President. I'm going to hope to be able to see where I'm advancing this. Oh. I'm going to need help advancing the slides. This isn't clicking through. And go to that. I always start my administrator's report with thanking our teammates for acting with respect, integrity, safety, and excellence.
Administrator Zelms, can I stop you? On our screens, we have the attendees by the virtual attendees. Could we get the screens on our console? There, was there for a second.
Yes.
Every other has it
Oh,
now,
I got it.
and the other ones are blank.
Okay,
I think every other is as good we can do as we can do tonight.
got it.
Okay.
Continue, Administrator.
Do the best I can. All right, so the next slide. You may be surprised to learn, and many people may be grateful to learn, Lime services are paused for the winter. So during winter, when we are likely to have inclement weather, the Lime e-bikes and electric scooters are collected and stored. So they will be back in spring of 2026, but right now they are not available based on the winter weather. Also, probably opportune time to share that you can find out our snow removal prioritization by going to rochestermn.gov/winter. We have a significant number of miles of roads that need to be cleared every time we have a snow event. We do prioritize certain emergency routes and our transit routes, and then go back and have a pickup process for cul-de-sacs, et cetera. So if you're interested in how that works, it is available on our website. Also, it shares information about which sidewalks and bike paths are plowed and cleared by city employees. Did just want to give a shout out to everyone who was plowing this weekend, whether that was a sidewalk, a trail, a parking lot, or somewhere out on public roads. Thank you for your service. And the last thing I have is 2nd Street Southwest is reopened for the winter. So 2nd Street between 11th and 13th Avenue Southwest is now open. That part of the Link Rapid Transit construction won't be impacting that roadway throughout the winter. And for those of you who maybe take College View Drive, that is also open through the winter.
Thank you,
Oh, yeah.
Ms. Zelms. I was going to mention that if you didn't, because I do take that home. Next up, we have the mayor's report. Mayor Norton.
Well, thank you very much. And I was going to mention 4th Street as well. And the reason I was going to mention that is, let's see if this is working.
It is on every other one.
It's not, but it's not forwarding. Let's try again. There we go. The Better Public Meetings group, the gentleman who's been doing the research up to this point is coming to town. He will be doing a kind of a town hall, if you will, and we'll all be there. Building a local democracy that works for everyone is at RCTC this week on Thursday, December 4th from 5:30 to 7:30. The community is welcome. There is still a QR code there that you can scan to fill out if you have not already. And then attend the forum, whether you filled out the survey or not. We're just looking for input and to have some folks really sitting at a table, putting some thought into running better meetings and using the public better in boards and commissions as well. So again, RCTC on Thursday and 4th Street is open. Also wanted to mention the 3 of us went to the National League of Cities Convention, and we were awarded the Just Cities Global Award. There were 5 cities in the country, well, 1 international and 4 in the United States that were recognized at the convention. So I have the plaque, which needs to go somewhere. And City Administrator Zelms, if you have an idea about where we might put it, we have a plaque, or we can put it in the foyer, in the cases there at some point if you'd like. So it was really nice to be recognized in that way. New Year's celebration, New Year's Eve, we have been hosting for the last several years a family, and it's really family focused, New Year's Eve celebration at Mayo Civic Center. It is open to the public. We had about 4,000 people the first 2 years. Last year we had over 6,000 attend, so it's very well attended by the community. It's open from 11 a.m. To, it looks like 7. I thought it was going to be 8, but the ball drop is at 6. So for the youngsters who want to come and have a ball drop, we're doing it at 6, a few hours early. We don't want them up till midnight. They'll be cranky the next day. So it's really fun. There's roller skating, lots of fun activities for kids to do. It's free for the family, and it's really great. Video games and a dance party. Rock climbing walls, all sorts of stuff for kids to do. So you can purchase food and beverage while you're there if you like, or go home for lunch or dinner. Or even better yet, go downtown and visit one of our local restaurants. So we have been upping our game when it came to sister cities. We have 5 of them. We have visited 3 of them over the course of my tenure here. I know Mayor Brady, Mayor Hazama, Mayor Canfield all made some of those visits as well. This year it will be in Germany, June 12th to 22nd. It's a 10-day trip. If you're interested, we have there's a QR code there where you can read more and sign up, but we also have some brochures up in my office. So please contact me and consider coming. We will go to Moosburg, which was one of Chuck Hazama's fun cities that he started that relationship many, many years ago. It's like 46, 47, 48 years ago. And then we will end go to several cities in between, but then end in Munster, which is our sister city for energy and environment. Lovely city, and the mayor there and the city's already making some plans for our visit. So feel free to join us for that. And lastly, just an announcement, the Mayor's State of the City is January 8th, 2026. It will be a 7:30 a.m. breakfast. You can choose to purchase a breakfast and stay and eat, or you can just come and listen. It will be, I will do the State of the City, and we also invite local leaders from all the other governmental bodies to speak as well. So it's good to be able to hear from the school district, the county, and the city about what's to come in the coming year. So that's all I have today, and there is the mayor's office number if you care to call.
Thank you, Mayor. Uh-oh.
Something happened.
Okay.
There we go.
Well, as they are working on that, it sounds like maybe we're in a good place now. Next up on our agenda is the order of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Wall,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Doring. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Moving on to our consent agenda, I have received one pulled item, F8, from Councilmember Palmer. Is there anything else? Seeing none, I'd invite a motion to approve in block items F1 through F7 and F9 and F10.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Miller,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Keen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. We have one, I believe, public hearing on our agenda tonight. Before we begin the public hearing, just a moment to clarify the process, a little different from our open comment period. Staff will first introduce the item, and then if there is an applicant or applicant representative, they will have up to 10 minutes to discuss the item. Then we will open the public hearing. Members of the public have 5 minutes each and are also encouraged to keep comments brief and concise and build on previous comments. Then I will close the public hearing, and if there is an applicant, they will have 5 minutes to discuss any issues that came up during the public hearing, and then at that point, council members will ask questions of staff and the applicant and/or the applicant, and then at that point, we will invite a motion on the item and further discussion. So with that, we have one public hearing, which is the adoption of the 2026 property tax levy and the 2026-2027 operating budget and the 2026-2031 capital improvement plan budget. And Administrator Zelms, this is your item.
Thank you, Council President, council members, Mayor Norton, members of the public. This is the public hearing for the budget for the 2026-2027 budget. What you are looking at tonight is primarily going to be adopting a property tax levy for 2026, although it also provides a bit of a glide path and runway for what you can expect for your supplemental budget in 2027. And as noted, a significant amount of information about the capital improvement program, which we try to plan out as a 6-year program of large projects that are forthcoming to the city. So with that, I will seek to advance 2 sets of slides here, and bear with me. We've been on a journey of the budget since about April. Our teammates, and thank you very much to Rachel Hodick, Brian Anderson, Aaron Parrish, Josh Doer, all of the department heads and the folks throughout their departments that work so hard to bring the budget together. They start in February and actually started in November of last year this time to bring you this budget. We come forward with the factors that are influencing the budget, some of which aren't in our control, and then bring forward the baseline budget adjustments, so the things that are necessary in order to continue to provide the services that are expected, any adjustments for additional service or new services, and new resources for the community. The city administrator's recommended budget, we went through in August and September study sessions, and then came forward with the preliminary levy in September of this year. And now we're here at the budget hearing. For anybody that's interested, we do have links to all of those different presentations on the website. If you go to departments, finance, and current year budget, you can see all of those things if it's something that interests you. We also, oh my goodness, are here again to adopt the levy, receive feedback from the community during the public hearing. And I do think it's also important to note, and I'll have a few slides on this, increases in taxes really are often impacted significantly by the property valuation, which comes to each property owner in the spring of each year, which doesn't have the new tax levies on it. That comes in November. But those the evaluation of each property is a large factor of how much your property tax might shift each year. And that process of appeal of the assessment that someone may have for their property is through the Olmsted County Assessor's Office. You can do that at any time, but they do those appeal hearings in June of each year. So they can be reached at 507-328-7635 or property web at co.olmsted.mn.us. So that's an important thing for you to be aware of. Even if you missed this year, if you feel like your property valuation was inaccurate for 2020, the 2026 payment, you can still do that with the county for next year. So just an important note that the city doesn't actually do those assessments for the property valuation. There are also a number of programs through the state and Olmsted County, depending on qualifications, that folks should be aware of. The special homestead classification for blind or permanently and totally disabled persons. So again, you would need to qualify for something like that. It adjusts the valuation of property, the market value exclusion on homestead property of disabled veterans. Senior citizen property tax deferral is an option. And homestead exclusion programs for those who've seen a very significant increase in their total property tax are things that people should check into. We are cruising through this. And then also, it's important to note that the homestead credit refund program is available, the renter's property tax refund. For those that rent, it is assumed that about 17% of your rent is coming to you to pay for property tax. So that's something that you can write off your income taxes. And then the targeting property tax refund program. So all of those, we've provided the links, but it may be easier for you to go to revenue.state.mn.us/property-tax-refund. These are clickable links that are available on our website, or you can call them at 651-296-3781 or mail them for information. So those are just things that people may be interested in checking out. If you have a neighbor or someone else in your life that you think might qualify for those or would benefit from them, we would recommend that you check out the information on those pages in order to see if you qualify for something of that nature. The operating budget, I'll just go through briefly, maybe. All funds combined, we have a budget before us of $693.4 million. That is all of our capital projects, our utilities like stormwater, electric, water, our debt service, all of those things wrapped up. So our entire budget and what it is we are anticipating it will cost this year in order to operate all of the services of the city, including Rochester Public Utilities, is that $693.4 million. And you can see, maybe you can't see, but if you check it out, you can see that of that operation, so day-to-day operations, making sure the services are being provided is about $421 million. Debt service is about $26 million, and our capital improvement plan for this year is anticipated to be about $246 million. So being able to make sure that the infrastructure that's in place is well cared for is a really important part of our capital improvement program. All told, that's a $6.6 million increase in the total property tax that needs to be collected in order to provide services that are funded by the property tax. And that 5.95% increase is not the tax rate increase. So I think that's just a really important thing to note. Everyone's tax bill will really adjust more so based on their assessed valuation and how much their classification of property changed relative to the rest of the classes of property. This recommended budget also includes a 4% increase in the general rate for the electric utility and 9% for a rate increase for the water utility. And there was a slight change in how this was accounted for from the preliminary budget, if you have those numbers in front of you. And you can see on this slide, we have a number of different revenue sources that also are necessary in order to fund those expenses. You can see here, well, again, it's very small, but if you're logged in, you can check this out online. We are anticipating an increase in the tax levy necessary. That is about $6.6 million of all of the revenue, but you can increase in all of the revenue, but you can also see that we've seen increases in other areas like the hotel motel tax, which is helpful to fund the Civic Center and some other entities that help us to improve the economy. Inspection permits, service fees, the allocation that we have for the increased service level so we can keep providing all the permitting while Bold Forward Unbound is going on. There are increases in the in lieu of tax and sewer utility as well as other charges that are available to fund our electric, water, and stormwater and sewer utilities. So while the property tax is very important to people, there are a lot of other ways that that $694 million is funded because the property tax is about $118 million of that $694 million. My apologies. I'm clicking too fast or too slow. So this is another way of looking at that chart. You can see that the charges for service are a significant portion of the budget, and that makes sense because we do have a significant amount of utilities that are provided for the city, and you pay for those in the rates that you pay based on how much you're using in electric, water, sewer, and what your impact is on the stormwater. Miscellaneous revenue is also not a small portion of this, so capital improvement program costs, private funds, other types of revenue that are necessary in order to complete our programming. The tax levy is about 17% of the total revenue that comes in to support the city services, and then we do get intergovernmental revenue, whether that's our agreements with the federal government, state government, or our local government aid. So the tax levy and tax capacity, as I mentioned, the total budget that was presented, recommended to the city council was $693.4 million. The preliminary tax levy that was approved in September was approved at $118,284,623 million. It's about a $6.6 million increase over the prior year. And our teammates here did a really great job of trying to get that as low as possible while still adding additional services and resources as a growing community. So a big thank you to them. You can see another way of looking at this. Most of the blue area are things that are necessary to continue to provide the service levels that people have become accustomed to. We have some reductions there. Thank you to our team for trying to make reductions where possible. We've continued to try to stabilize our equipment revolving fund as prices of vehicles have increased. We didn't see any increase in the tax levy portion for the capital improvement plan. We did see, again, that holistic budget stability fund being used as those COVID funds have been depleted, and the city council had directed those to reduce the levy increases necessary, portion of that. And then employee services typically will go up between 4% and 5% each year across the tax levy. The decision packages are some of those new and optimized resources to be able to continue to provide service as we grow and evolve. And this is an important slide because what it shows is the actual net tax capacity rate. So the rate that's going across all of those properties and is influencing your tax bill is still hovering in that 49 to 51%. So what we anticipate for 2026, if this is approved, is a 50.39% tax rate, which is slightly lower than the 2025 rate. But again, it will really depend on how your property adjusted in its valuation relative to other properties in that class. We were fortunate also to have some increases in the amount of new construction, which helps to defray some of that depending on where folks were, what tax category folks are in. This is an example of a median value home, so you can see if there was no valuation change for someone's home and they happen to live in a home that's valued at $288,000, they would actually have seen a slight decrease in the taxes that they owed. If they increased the average increase of a median value home to a valuation of $304,000, you start seeing changes to what the actual tax collected is. A part of that is that you start to see your homestead credit fall off as you rise in value of the home. And then, of course, also, if your valuation goes up more, you would absorb more of the tax rate for the city, the school district, and the county. Another thing to think about when we're talking about the valuation that happens at the county level and the city's budget process, mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, but those valuations are coming out at the beginning of the year for any updated assessments. And then, of course, we start our budget process. We get some of the updated valuation information from the Olmsted County Assessor's Office later in our budget year. So we often don't get that until we're ready to adopt the preliminary budget. And then the tax notices that go out again in November actually include what those adopted high-level levies can be for any of the taxing entities that impact your tax bill. Oh, goodness. Thank you. I don't know if someone's helping me or if it's just magically happening, but thank you. So another way of looking at this is between 2025 and the 2026 tax year, residential property made up a slightly smaller portion of the total tax valuation. And that had not been happening that way during the pandemic and the years following that. Commercial and industrial actually increased a slight amount by 0.5% of the total taxable valuation, the tax capacity of property. And apartments stayed relatively flat at 10.5 and then 10.4%. So we did see an increase in the total taxable market value and the taxable tax capacity, which is part of how the taxes that are from those entities spread across the tax bill. And that's helpful. Some of that was new construction, and that is also helpful to individual tax bills because that always absorbs the tax levy first before any existing property. Another way of thinking about the budget is if you are living in that $304,000 median value home, you would have a levy of approximately $1,436 for that home, and the cost across your tax bill is going First and foremost to public safety. That is a very labor-intensive type of work, whether that's police, fire, or building safety. Then Public Works makes up about $172 of that bill. General government, those are things like council, development services, some of our maintenance, IT, HR, those types of services. So you can see that if you break down what the actual proportionate of the budget is for, that is paid for with the tax levy, that is how the tax bill is actually coming to an individual, what makes up that $1,436. And then again, just one other way of looking at this, the property tax distribution by fund. So the general fund, which is where police, fire, public works, et cetera, are funded, where those expenses come from, about 60, well, we'll call it 70% of the property tax is necessary in order to support those. We don't charge when fire department shows up or police show up. And then from there, Parks and Recreation, the capital improvement program that I mentioned, the library, some debt and internal service funds, and then a very small percent, less than 1%, helps to offset some of the costs at the airport for utilities. Oh, goodness. And this is just another way of looking at that. I do think it's important to note that, oh, goodness. Sorry, I'm trying to do this in two places. I should just look at your screen. The Destination Medical Center capital projects are not funded with the tax levy. Those are all coming from either general state aid or other funding sources that are not local tax levy. Thank you. The internal service funds, again, the library is very reliant on property taxes. We don't have very many fees at the library. Municipal recreation, they do have some charges for service that offset some of their costs. And then again, the general fund, about 60% of all of the costs in the general fund are paid for with the tax levy. And a part of that, about 4% increase in costs for salaries, you can see with the labor contracts that have been negotiated, some changes in the number of personnel and decision packages. And some of these, in some cases, are also breaking out 311 and communications from administration, et cetera. It's significant costs. If you have about a $50 million police department, it's not insignificant. A lot of that is personnel. And so the increases for personnel end up adding to a fair amount of cost in the budget each year. But it's necessary. It's a 24-hour service, and we need to make sure that they're available whenever you call. Another thing that we like to show is compare the communities that are similar-ish to the city of Rochester. You can see the populations there. These are our first cities of the first class in the state of Minnesota. Our local government aid received is really based on an aid formula that doesn't serve Rochester well. We are very self-reliant on all of our local revenue sources. But I did want to note that we did add the anticipated preliminary change in the tax levy this year. You can see some very significant differences in how much each community anticipates needing to bring in their local tax levy to make all of their services work. And statewide, for all cities, the preliminary levy was anticipated at an increase of 8.6%. So I think we tried to do to bring this in at a reasonable amount, but we do understand that it can be impactful depending on your specific tax bill. Again, one more way of looking at this. Can you advance me? Thank you. I think you've advanced me probably 80% of the time. Is that public safety, general government, public works, and other, that's an increase of about 11.2 million. So we needed to make a lot of decreases in those property tax funded expenses in order to bring a property tax that was only $6.6 million larger than the prior year. The rest of those are offset by revenue adjustments that aren't property tax or changes in costs and lowering costs for the 2026 year. We are still catching up a bit, and I will recognize that not everyone loves this chart. Lots of changes have happened since 1980. The internet, email, Teams, a lot of different things have happened that help us to not increase the number of full-time equivalent employees contracting for services. We do that in certain areas, but we have really grown a lot of our resources and tried to not grow at that same rate the number of employees that are necessary in order to support the community so that we can try to keep those costs under control. I will also just mention that our capital improvement plan includes 224 projects in 21 different categories of project and funding. So that's about $246 million of total investment. That includes the Rochester Public Utilities project costs. Some of that is funded by private investment, depending on the type of project, not just rates. And again, the total CIP, which runs from 2026 through 2031, has 378 projects. Many of these are multi-year projects, 21 categories, and about $1.1 billion of total investment, much of which is not coming from the tax levy. We have been very blessed to receive assistance with grants and otherwise from other levels of government that help to defray the local cost for these projects. And with that, I believe that we will move to I went too fast, public hearing.
Thank you, Administrator Zelms. At this point, I will open the public hearing, and we have one person who has signed up on our sign-up sheet, James Acklin. If you'll step forward, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Councilors. My name is James Anklin. I own a rare and unique property in Rochester. It is an affordable rental property. It's a nice place in a quiet neighborhood. I'm fighting a losing battle with local governments who wring their hands bemoaning the lack of affordable housing, then implement policies, regulations, taxes, and fees that aggravate the problem. Of my top 4 expenses, 3 are related to our local officials. Local taxes are my largest expense. My mortgage interest is next. That's a fixed rate, fortunately. RPU is third. In other communities where I've owned property, the rates have been considerably lower. My 4th expense is trash and recycling, which is a private company, but their itemized bill has a lengthy and expensive list of local fees that hitch a ride on the bumper of the waste hauler. I expect you'll pass some blame on to state and federal agencies, but if you are not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. You are in the League of Minnesota Cities, and I just heard earlier U.S. cities, and have considerably more sway over the politics than I do. When I worked for a large global corporation that shipped millions of dollars worth of parts per day to major automotive manufacturers, at budget time, our customers would bring us their cost down expectations for the coming year. You heard that right, cost down. After a year of building their products, they're expecting us to find ways to do it better, more efficiently. This is a thought process that public officials need to adopt better. I'm obviously a senior citizen. I'm planning an exit strategy for my real estate. Nearly every month I get unsolicited calls from major investment firms looking to buy local properties. These might seem like scams, but no, the callers identify themselves. They've already done the homework, looking up the assessments, the value of the property, estimating equity, and have proposals ready. The independent landlord is rapidly disappearing. Perhaps this is a goal. I don't know. To have major firms, investment firms, controlling your local rental market? The evidence certainly points that way. My renters are all nice people, working hard to provide for themselves and their families. I hate to see them face the expense of a megaplex run by a mega corporation from a distant city or even from overseas. The council can continue to wring their hands, or they can look for ways to reduce costs. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to be heard on this item, please step forward, state your name, and you have 5 minutes.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I am Molly Dennis. I came to speak at the open comment, but was a couple minutes late due to roads and kids, and of course the public comment has been moved up to 6, limiting resident voices. So I was unable to speak at open comment, but I'm going to speak here about property tax increases. As you know, we are here in this lighted forum with very few people in the audience to speak on raising their hard-earned tax dollars. And I hear a lot of percentages. I see the colorful, displays. I have been on the dais with you and I have researched intensely. But the problem with percentages and propaganda and platitudes, and I hear a lot of platitudes, is that it's not the details. We need audits, we need receipts, we need the exact numbers of where taxpayer dollars are going. I have requested, when I was a council member, the mayor's budget and many other details that were denied. Actually, I was silenced when I asked questions. The devil is in the details. You heard that cliche. It's the wasteful spending. The money that no one on the dais knows about because you do not have the numbers. I know I sat where you are at. I know you don't have the numbers because I requested it and was denied. The wasteful spending is where we can cut. We don't want to talk about the library. We love the library. We love things. Don't throw things out that how it's going to hurt people. We want to look at where money is being spent, the cronyism, the conflict of interest, the lack of competitive bidding, all of the things that are going to save millions of dollars. I did not come to speak on this issue, but I was compelled to, as I heard very few people are. People are struggling here in our city to stay in their homes, working paycheck to paycheck. All of you in your cushy jobs, which you will not share your amount of hours, so I imagine the wage per hour for each of you is extraordinary when most people are working minimum. The last 4 years on the dais, I voted against the property tax increase every year because of the lack of transparency. I do not think it's ethical for any of you to vote to raise property taxes when you do not know where the current dollars are being spent. Working families, people are struggling to stay in their homes. I have talked to so many people, and this increase will hurt senior citizens, will hurt people who are trying to make it here. Won't hurt the people making 6 digits, but will hurt people who are working paycheck to paycheck, caring for the most vulnerable in our community. And I ask you to please, before voting, to raise any taxes, to change any percentage in the property levy, to know exactly where every dollar is going, and to disclose where your incomes, where the travels are, where, who's bringing money into our city. Disclose it. Transparency is trust. And I compel you to please know where every cent is before you vote to raise property taxes. It is already hurting so many people, and every dollar hurts more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dennis. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to be heard on this item, please step forward. Anyone wishing to be heard on this item, please step forward. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and invite my colleagues to questions and discussion. Or a motion. Councilmember Keen.
Couple questions for City Administrator Zelms. Just on the tax capacity, I realize the number is lower year over year, but I'm also trying to watch this over a longer time, and it appears we had a good reduction in the early, almost the beginning of COVID, it dropped, and we've seem to be tending higher lately. Is that an accurate reading of it, or is it really other things that's out of our control?
Council President, Councilmember Keen, there are a couple of different things happening there. There was a 0% levy adjustment during COVID. And so when that occurred, we didn't actually reduce expenses to that amount.
Right.
When things turned back on, we still needed to have all of those services at the levels that people expected. So we weren't, those salaries came back online, but we needed to catch up to a degree on the cost that's necessary in order to provide those services. So we were I think it was 11 positions that were frozen, and those gradually had come back online over the course of 3 or 4 years. And now some of those changes are being impacted by continuing to recover from COVID, and we have different expectations for technology, hours worked, how people are getting their work done, as well as continued growth within the community. But I would say this is a fairly, if you look back far before COVID, we've tended to be in about that 48 to 51% of the net tax capacity levy. And a part of that is because we have, even in slower times, benefited from growth of new construction. It helps to mute the impact over all of the properties when the new construction absorbs some of the increase. But it also means sometimes we have to adjust our service levels in order to accommodate that new growth. So it's
Okay,
teeter-totter.
that's helpful. Just, and also on the tax capacity, I want to oversimplify and just see if, I'm going to run something by and just see if this is an accurate representation. If I take our 50.39% capacity and said, if I had a $100,000 house, does that mean it's $503.90? Because I'm taking the capacity per 100,000? Is that a oversimplified, or is it what the way I should be thinking about this?
So because there's an adjustment overall, right? So the way I think about it is the slides that have the property tax pie,
Yep.
the assessed valuation. The first thing that happens is if any of those pieces of pie grow because there's new construction, that's absorbing part of that increase. So that's not spreading across every other property. So that's already reduced the total amount of impact across the properties. Then you have to see how has each piece of the pie, so tax classification adjusted, if apartment goes up or commercial goes up, it's absorbing what used to be absorbed by residential property. So there's a lot of proportionality that occurs before it's more complex math is the simple answer.
I guess, but I thought that's why I liked this metric, because I thought it played that math through and came back to the residential as a not a be all end all, but an indicator that if we're under 50%, we're where we want to be.
You could use that as an approximation in the sense of if you looked at the median value home being $240,000 and that being, or the $300,000 home that was on the slide that showed the breakdown of where their taxes go was just shy of $1,500.
Yep.
1,463. So I think you could say, yes, that plays out that way. But again, it will depend on how much their value, the fact that it depends on how much their valuation changes will really impact that individual tax bill.
Okay. And another logistics question for our meeting here. We have a 5-part motion that includes budgets and it includes rates and tariffs. But the new thing that I noticed in there, it also seems to include payment in lieu of. And I do not remember having motions on those in the past. Is that something we are planning to do tonight, or it's like up for discussion?
Mr. Parrish.
Your Honor, I'm not sure about the past, but I think it is a good practice just to reflect, that there is, some council authorization within that charge. I mean, they are inherent in the budget that you've been provided. It sort of, requires that to make the budget work. But I think it just wanted to be transparent about, what payment in lieu of taxes is being charged, just for your awareness. So I'm not sure it's necessarily obligated because your budget approval, contemplates that, but I do think it, is helpful for people to understand what the different funds are contributing.
Thank you. That's helpful. Just, but more like logistically for tonight, are we making 5 different motions, or is there one motion that's 5 parts and includes all those details?
Your Honor, I think that's, and I'll defer to the parliamentarians here, but
Okay.
I think it's your prerogative. I think you could accept one motion approving all items.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just add that the reason that we've listed it this time is because there was a prior action during those pandemic years that muted any changes to those payment in lieu of taxes for those referenced on the council requested action. Those, the parking fund, the stormwater utility, the sewer fund, and transit. Not
Yeah,
transit.
and stormwater one too.
Yes, so those, because there was a prior action I think finance felt more comfortable. They wanted to make sure that it was called out. You don't have to specify it specifically. The fact that it's listed here would, but we want to make sure you understand and the departments that you're making a new action.
Okay, and that's helpful for me to understand the wording in front of me, because what I wasn't seeing is all of the pilot payments listed, only some of them, and that had me thrown off, but now I think I understand.
Councilmember Palmer.
Thank you. I'm just going to quick say something about the speaker that was talking about numbers, and the numbers are available, and every month we do on our agenda approve payments that we've made. So I don't want people to think that we have no idea how we're spending money. We very well know where we're spending money. I'm very comfortable with that. I am glad that we have been able to reduce the tax levy increase from the higher percentages of 24 and 25, but we can do better. We have people who are struggling with the cost of living in Rochester. Cumulative increases over previous years have made property taxes a burden for the average family. We have increased the levy 45% to 2021. We shouldn't rest simply because we avoided a 10% increase. To lower the 5.8 levy increase, to reduce it by 1%, we need to reduce it by $1.1 million. I propose reductions in August and will make a series of motions to get a 4.8% tax levy increase. I will move to take $500,000 out of our contingency fund from the 2025 and apply it to the budget. We have a 46% reserve fund when only 42% is required or recommended. I will move that we do not fund the ADA management coordinator at $153,000. This position can wait for better times. I will move that we do not fund the north maintenance position until next year when the building is open and running, and we would save $134,000. I will move to delay the new position of arbist, saving $124,000. I will move to reduce the budget of the library by $245,000. We currently have the most expensive library in the region and the state, in some cases spending almost twice as much per resident as comparable sized cities. There are just some of my suggestions to help people in Rochester who are struggling to pay their property taxes. I'm sure we could come up with some more ideas. We have some unknowns coming next year. We have family leave coming with no real knowledge of the cost of supplementing the people on leave. We have electric rates going up and water rates going up. And so after the motion is made, I'll make some amendments.
Is there a motion that a member would like to make?
I'd like.
Go ahead, Councilmember Keen.
I'd like to move a 5-part motion to approve, number 1, a 2026-27 operating budget, number 2, a 2026 to 2031 capital budget, number 3, a 2026 general tax levy of $118,284,623, number 4, a 2026-2027 electric and water utility budget, and number 5, a 2026-27 electric water utility rate, fee, and tariff adjustments. And I would also add to this approving the payment in lieu of taxes for the RPU utilities and for public works enterprises.
Motion made by Councilmember Keen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Miller. Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
Yeah, we started this budget work in about May, and there is new spending going on in this budget. We approved about 1.5% a budget increase based on what do you call them? Decision packets. These are things that have become before us before and didn't make it. Some of them were justified through more efficient operation, but make no mistake, they include spending. And that's something that we did do this year. And we also had some benefits this year that we were projecting earlier on, more of a 7.5% to 8.5% increase, and we were able to bring it down. As far as a 5.8% year-over-year levy increase, realize we're dealing with about 2% growth that was just real new growth, new taxpayers in there, and another 2.5% or so like higher valuations. The 2.5% higher valuations are harder to deal with, but the fact is, with a growing city, to say we need to keep our levy flat just doesn't make sense in the inflationary years we've lived through the last couple of years. So I think I've had my questions and things that we've challenged budget things coming to this point, and I'm prepared tonight to support what we've worked on with staff on for the last 8 months.
Anything to add, Councilmember Miller?
I'll just add, based on some of the comments as well about the efficiency of our budget, I think that we'll have a good opportunity in the new year to talk about the efficiency of how we're growing, how we're providing services across the city of our size, how we're providing the level of service that people have come to expect. And I am not in favor of changing this tonight, as we've had months of discussion, but I do look forward to having a broader conversation of how we manage this trend in the long term and how we understand the things that contribute to our city's financial wealth and prosperity and that of our residents, and those that challenge our city budgets by providing a service over an expanding outward city, and just make sure that we're in alignment with our citizens as we plan for services and provide services. I would just talk about how we've chosen not to fund our public transit system with tax levy. We've made some service cuts, and we see those in other areas. So these are the trade-offs, right? And as we talk about the services, and I'm, again, not in favor of changing the level of service that we're providing based on any emotions tonight.
Councilmember Palmer.
Yeah, I have a question for RPU. I didn't know we were going to do five-part motion. I'm trying to understand, grab my head around this, that we had a 4%, we had a 6% and 4% increases, and then we lowered it to 4%. And you and I have talked about Austin going 1.9% decrease. And part of our increases is, what percentage, I guess my question is how much of this is for the upcoming years to plan for the 2030? How much of this is the neutral carbon plan that we have? How does this 6% or 4% increase fall into the area?
Councilmember Palmer, Council President, Mayor, other council members. My name is Tim McCullough, General Manager for RPU. To answer your question in a couple parts, Councilmember Palmer, it is true, the Austin Utilities in Austin, Minnesota has announced a 1.9% rate decrease on their electric utility. The foundation of that was wholesale expense reductions that we also experienced as a member of SIMPA to the tune of about 10% wholesale reductions. Austin and Austin Utilities are in a different environment than the city of Rochester. They don't experience the same amount of community growth. They are also a sustained member of the SIMPA agency, so they're not also doing a power supply resource plan and investing in new forms of generating capacity and energy, and just overall different economic conditions in the community. Our rates and our recommendations are based upon meeting the community's growth and other goals, the action plan adopted by council. So to get to the specifics of your question, kind of what is embedded within the 4% and 6% electric, and then I'll infer the water rates as well there. But there are really three major categories that we're meeting with this budget. One is new capital investment. Our advanced metering project is a significant capital outlay of about $33 million over a 3-year period. $16 million of that goes into the electric budget. We're making many new, investments in power supply capacity. Our Mount Simon station is an expected $175 million investment that will require bonding in 2027. Most all of the wholesale decreases that we will experience next year will be rededicated towards that future debt service, which in the end is replacing Sherco Unit 3, the retiring coal plant. We are also making investments in renewable energy, as you mentioned, and that is built into our budget assumptions. I would split it roughly into equal thirds. The 1/3 of our capital investment is towards reliability and maintaining our assets. 1/3 is related to new capital spending, the advanced metering project being one of the largest portions of that capital spend, and the other third is to meet the community growth trajectory. As our community grows and adds new housing, that comes with utility costs to build out infrastructure for those three. Hopefully I answered your question, Councilmember Palmer.
You did. In the advanced metering, there's going to be a 3-year project, and we're excited to see they come on board. Will there be a cost savings then to the ratepayer as this gets implemented?
Not in the way that many would assume. So this is almost a cost-neutral investment. Although we will see less labor in driving the city and collecting meter reads, there's a higher level of infrastructure to support that. And so from an operating expense standpoint, we don't see a significant reduction in operating expense with this capital investment. We do have end of life on our water meters. They're battery powered. And so much of this investment is to refresh the infrastructure and move forward. It doesn't come with a significant amount of operating expense reduction. There's some labor offsets, but it's also some new spend in software and technology.
And we've talked about number one goal is dependability. And the new meters will make it more dependable for you to be able to service our customers. Is that not correct?
Exactly right. Better response times, more insight to what's happening at the edge of the grid, and more data available both to the customer and the utility for planning and other purposes moving forward.
And will this lead to peak billing? Peak hour billing? If at 6 o'clock on July 5th, I want to buy electricity, it's going to be more expensive, or are you not going to be able to meter it that closely?
We have not made any recommendations, or the RPU board has not considered any structural changes to date on what is possible after the implementation of advanced metering. But I would say the foundation of advanced metering enables future rate changes that are not possible today, especially time-based rates or demand-based rates. But no decisions have been made there.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And so I go to Mr. Miller's kind of comment. In August, I brought up these issues, and this is the day that we get to make these decisions, what we want to do. So I am going to make a motion to amend the motion, and my first one will be to take $500,000 of the contingency fund from 2025 and apply it to the budget.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I just think that we have this extra money that's sitting there that's going to be turned over to next year. I'd like to see it be used to reduce the budget for this year. I think it's a 46% reserve fund. We really only need 42%.
Further discussion?
Yep.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Administrator Zelms, can you explain to us exactly what does happen with that contingency fund money at the end of the year when we don't use it?
Certainly, Council Member Fredericks, Council President, Mayor, other members of the council. The challenge with allocating one-time dollars to an ongoing budgeted expenses, if without making further reductions in the 2027 budget, then you will need to cover those costs with 2027 property tax levy. So what happens to the $500,000 or whatever remains in contingency is it remains in the fund balance of the general fund. That's where it's budgeted. And it is available in order to, if you have costs that are a surprise. I believe we talked about the potential that depending on how we end the year for the 2025, that we would be hoping that for the implementation of the enterprise resource planning software, that it came in at a much higher amount, that might be able to offset the cost of that implementation. Typically, we wouldn't do that, but we have a known cost coming up. It also, if you did drop below the 42%, you would potentially have problems maintaining your AAA credit rating, which affects how the markets look at you when you go for bonding for a large capital project, and having a very positive bond rating actually reduces the cost of financing over time, reducing the overall cost of expenses. So a couple of different factors. It goes to the fund where it has been accrued to. So if we spend less than what we anticipated during the budget, it's available for a rainy day. And it's also available in case there's something that happens that was unanticipated that isn't necessarily something like the pandemic or the Great Recession, something of that nature. It helps to smooth out some of those peaks and valleys. I think the other thing, which you didn't ask, but I think it's important, is that if you utilize contingency, you use it once, but then to continue to fund those expenses, you would need to increase the tax levy in the future.
Councilmember Frederick, do you have more questions or?
I do believe in showing good faith to our community that we're doing everything we can to keep our tax dollars down. And that just looked like an obvious way to me to show them that we're doing what we can to do that for them.
Councilmember Wall.
I would ask Administrator Zelms, the contingency fund, how much does that represent in terms of the percentage of unused monies that are applied to the reserve in a typical year?
I would say we typically don't budget the contingency to help our reserve. We ask all of our teammates to budget for what they think is reasonable and not overspend their budget. And if they don't need to make expenditures or they're able to purchase things for less, make a different decision. Most of the savings is coming from things like positions are vacant for a period of time and we are budgeting for their salary, but we will have to replace their salary at some point. So the contingency is really a very small part. I would have to phone a friend to know exactly what that percentage is. But to be 42% of the general fund budget is not a small number that is necessary. We also utilize the reserve every year because we receive the vast majority of our revenues twice a year, and we are expending, we have bills that you see every council meeting that come forward every 2 weeks, sometimes every day. So the operation side the expenses of the operation don't come twice a year. They come all year long, and the revenue comes in, and the peak of revenue then gets spent down, and then the peak of revenue comes back again and gets spent down for two things: ongoing employee costs, but then we also have two peaks that happen every year as well, which are debt payments. Those don't happen monthly; those happen twice a year.
Mr. Parrish had something to add?
Yeah, Your Honor, just what it gets added to the reserves, there's no static formula to it. I mean, there could be a year where we have great building permit revenue, or there could be a year where we have, less utilized contingency. I would also just say, I think the important thing is there's a math kind of thing to think about with our reserve amount. So 42% is the guideline, but when your budget grows from 111 million to 116 million, it takes more to get to 42%. So you have to sort of inherently have some way to grow that reserve every year to keep, so if we didn't do anything, if we had nothing go this year, 46% will become something less than that. So we do try to think about it that way as well, where we're trying to add to keep ahead of the budget growth, if that makes sense.
I think I need to ask the question in a little different way. One, an absurd example, and then a more logical example. If the clerk's office didn't expend their entire budget for rubber bands for a year, I would presume that kind of money then gets turned to the reserve. On a more logical level, if a larger department was an FTE down for the average of a whole year, that $100,000 with benefits would then as well be moved to the reserve. And I would think that in many years, with as large a budget as we have, that those kinds of additions to the reserve would outpace whatever we have left in contingency that would go to the reserve. That'd be my guess.
I think that generally would be accurate. And the challenge with that is we've had a number of years, we've had a lot of turnover in departments, for example, like the police department, where that can add up to potentially $1 million, but we've had less turnover more recently. And so we can't always count on that to happen because some of those are cyclical things that are out of our control. And we build those into the ongoing baseline budget, whereas we don't, if we utilize one-time dollars for ongoing expense, the only way to build that in again is to cut that expense again or some other expense or to add revenue, which in the general fund is typically going to be tax levy.
Councilmember Palmer.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear that I don't want this to go below 42%. I don't want to affect our AAA bond rating, but I do know that it's a higher than 42%. And I understand Mr. Parrish's comment that we have to budget more. But I think this year I know this year that we have more than we need. And I think once you have more than you need, this is the time to help out taxpayers. And this is our opportunity to do it.
Councilmember Keene.
Yeah, we're talking about the contingency from 2025 being applied to 2026. I want to make sure there's no generally accepted accounting principles that say you shouldn't get to do that as a matter of policy.
Go ahead.
Council President, Council Member, I think that's what I'm trying to say. You typically should not apply one-time dollars to ongoing expenses. A less conflicting thing to do would to reduce your 2026 contingency to $500,000. The problem is if you ever want to increase that to $1 million, you're adding $500,000 to the budget.
Okay. All right. Again, so it's not a generally accepted accounting practice. It's just a gotcha warning, because if you do it, you're just pushing the wave out another year.
An absurd example would be if you set up a subscription for thousands of dollars of rubber bands a month, but you don't have additional revenue coming in, you can't afford the rubber bands.
Yeah. Okay.
There's an amendment on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails.
I'd like to make another motion that we do not fund the ADA Management Coordinator at $153,000 this year.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Councilmember Palmer.
This is an item that was added because we had a consultant come in, and I don't see the necessity of it. I didn't in August, and I don't today.
Anything to add, Councilmember?
Yeah, I do believe there's people within the city currently that can handle anything that arises in this area. And I once again, if we can save some money in an area, I'd like to do that.
Mayor?
Yeah, I would just say this particular suggestion is concerning to me. We've worked really hard for a couple years to try to get our head around all the places in our city budget and our city policies and services where we're not meeting the needs of people with disabilities in this community. And the work of the community committees and individuals in the city are now needing action. And action needs a person in order to follow up and be an expert. And this was an issue I asked about when I first became mayor and was told, well, there's people in other departments that know a little bit here and a little bit there. But we didn't have a single identified person as required by law to say, this is who you go to when you have an issue. We sort of skirted that a little bit by having people spread out all over, and there wasn't that single resource for people to go to that most cities have. And it was something we were missing, and I was pleased when we used our free intern that we got from the Bloomberg Harvard program for 2 years to get us to the point we're at today. But we need that position to continue the work and make sure that we're doing all we can in a community for health that has people with health issues and disabilities to keep us compliant and to take care of the people who live here. So I would urge us not to make that cut.
There's an amendment on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion fails.
My next motion is that we do not fund the north maintenance position until next year when the building is open and running. The building doesn't even have a roof at this time.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Any further comments?
No, we had this discussion in August in that the building is not up and running yet. We do have a maintenance person at the existing building. With a brand new building, you should be able to use that person to take care of what we have coming up.
Councilmember Keen.
Maybe it's a point of order, but I'll just ask whether it's staff or one of my peers. The motion got to do with eliminating a position. We're in a budget thing. I'd like someone to put into budget language that this reduces the 2026 levy by, $120 some thousand. Is that that's why I'd like to think of it if we're having a budget meeting.
I believe I said $134,000.
$134,000.
If I did not, I apologize.
And so I apologize, just for me to think about this in my ways would be, the motion is to reduce this by reducing the position. And then I'd like to be able to turn to staff and say, is that accurate?
What percentage?
Thank you for the clarification, Councilmember Keen. Is a question, Mr. Parrish, are you going to take it?
Yeah, Your Honor, I think the math is correct, or that was the amount of the decision package, so that is it. And, just for further clarification, I think the motion also sort of reflected that it would be a need in the 27 budget. The reason why it's within this particular budget is because the goal would be to hire someone on as the buildings commission, so they have the ability to be onboarded into the new mechanical and electrical systems as the buildings commissioned and turned over to the city. I do believe, we wouldn't necessarily be hiring for this, right in January. I think we would try to make a judgment call about the timing of when the construction had, but we wanted the flexibility in order to make sure someone was onboarded into the building as it was being turned over from the contractor.
Councilmember Doring.
What percentage would that lower if we voted for this amendment, what percentage of the levy would that reduce?
We'll go ahead.
I believe that that would be something like 0.1, I mean, it's $134,000.
Bring it down to 5.83.
5.83% versus 5.95%.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Clerk Kasel, could you take the roll?
Councilmember Keen,
Nay.
Councilmember Miller,
Nay.
Councilmember Wall,
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks,
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer,
Aye.
Councilmember Doring,
Nay.
Council President Schubring.
Nay.
Motion fails.
The next one I have is for $124,000 is to delay the new position of arborist with the Park and Rec Department.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Parrish or Administrator Zelms, is that accurate?
Council President, I'm unclear. When the word delay is used, do you mean delay it until the middle of the year, delay it until 2027? I guess I just need that clarity.
2040.
So don't fund the $124,380 for an arborist in 2026 or 2027.
Any further, go ahead, Councilmember Fredericks?
Yeah, I just want to be clear. We're just trying to save the community some money here. That's why we're bringing these things forward. And, you know, if it's a definite safety thing or a definite need, it's one thing. But when it's things to maybe make things a little more comfortable and such, you know, sometimes when things are tough, we need to scrimp a little bit.
Councilmember Wall.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Fredericks. This might be one that we could work on ourselves a little bit. I am a certified something because I took the course and the test, and I have my little certificate at home that says I can do minor arborist deeds around my property. I would hope that perhaps we could get by and save a little money for the city.
Councilmember Keen.
Yeah, this was one, it's hard on me too, because there is this idea of like we have an arborist and we have some different people working, but we had a proposal come forward that was backed by many that we needed about 9 additional arborists, and this was like 3 or 4 years ago. And it just seemed unstuck from the reality of our budgeting process. At the same time, as you go forward and you're growing into new neighborhoods and doing these other things, it does seem like logical to me that we will need to grow some of these staffs over a longer period of time. And I think this is one that's why in this year in the budget, in the decision packets, it came forward. A lot of these things don't come to us because they get stopped at the administration level. And the fact that this got through the administration this time makes me feel it's more of a need in certain areas than what it was certainly 4 years ago, and trying to be staffed at a much higher level than we're talking about now.
Councilmember Doring.
I agree with the points that Councilmember Keen just made. And question for staff, what is the typical response time or a call time for an arborist? If someone files a service call, how long does it take for an arborist to show up?
Councilmember Doring, President and council members, that really isn't the issue. If we are able to respond within a reasonable amount of time if staff are available. The arborist, as the need for the arborist as outlined in the 2023 Urban Forest Master Plan, was to keep up with the maintenance of the trees, pruning. If you recall, at our last council meeting, there was a complaint about vegetation that homeowner was cited for. One of the complaints he had is as he was taking pictures, he was seeing branches hanging pretty low on the boulevard trees. We currently are at about a 20-year cycle to prune our public trees. And we have reduced that somewhat with grant funding we received, but even at this rate of having an additional arborist, it's going to be an all of the above approach with contracted services with all of our team members. I will point out also, it's not just arborists that are maintaining trees, it's our landscape techs and everybody we have on board.
And follow-up question, if a boulevard tree or a a tree on public property that is maintained by our arborists is not trimmed properly, is that a public safety issue?
It is. And if it's not pruned at all, it's a safety issue because during storm events, they are more likely to fall.
Thank you.
Mayor Norton.
Paul. The question I have related to this is, do you have any idea about, you talked about needing to hire contract workers to do this. Are we saving money by having our own arborist on staff? I know sometimes when we contract, it's more expensive, not less. Have you priced that out, and do we know?
I don't have those numbers with me this evening, but we do, part of our budget, a great deal of our budget in the forestry division is contracted services, and our arborists oversee that as well, and they oversee the work of others who are not certified arborists doing the work.
Councilmember Fredericks.
With that said, I like the idea of contracted services because you don't have to carry year-round employees with the full benefits and everything else. You can hire a reputable company to help you out when needed, get caught up, and away you go.
I agree. It is efficient. Thank you.
You bet.
There's an amendment on the floor. Clerk Kasel, please call the roll.
Councilmember Keen.
Nay.
Councilmember Miller.
Nay.
Councilmember Wall.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer.
Aye.
Councilmember Doring.
Nay.
Council President Schubring.
Nay.
Motion fails.
Councilmember Palmer.
I have my last one, and I appreciate your patience for this. To save $245,000, I move that we reduce the budget of the library by that amount.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further further comments, Councilmember Palmer?
Yes, and doing a lot of research and looking at things, we currently have the most expensive library in the region, in the state, in some cases spending almost twice as much per resident as comparable sized cities. That just happens to be a fact. And, you know, we're open on Sundays all day. We're the only one that I can find that we are in the area. And I don't think reducing the budget by $245,000 is a large, they have $11 million budget, so I don't see that as a huge hit for them. You know, if you add all these numbers up that we've just voted on, we would have saved $1.1 million, which is 1% of the levy. I'm just trying to help out and move things ahead for people who just really are tight right now and trying to struggle or struggling to get through.
Councilmember Fredericks?
He said it.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Kasel, please call the roll.
Councilmember Keen.
Nay.
Councilmember Miller.
Nay.
Councilmember Wall.
Nay.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer.
Aye.
Councilmember Doring.
Nay.
Council President Schubring.
Nay.
Motion fails. 5-2.
We are back to the original motion. Any further discussion on the original motion made by Councilmember Keen and seconded by Councilmember Miller? Seeing none, all in favor of the five-part motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 6-1 with Councilmember Palmer voting nay. Moving on to our reports and recommendations, we have item H1, which is site development agreement with Mayo Clinic for conditional site plan approval for the construction of the North Arrival Center and the South Parking Ramp. Ms. Steinhauser.
Good evening. Thank you, Council President Schubring, Mayor Norton, members of the City Council. Cindy Steinhauser, Deputy City Administrator. I'm here to present on this item. Also joining me are Community Development Director Irene Woodward and online our outside legal counsel Rachel Tierney, both who have been instrumental in this work. Do you have? Should have maybe Al.
I think it's this one.
Yep, it is. Pregnant pause, remember that with each slide. Okay, great. So what's before you is a request for approval of a conditional site plan approval for two buildings that are part of the Bold Forward Unbound in Rochester effort. That is the North Arrival Center and the parking ramp. These Pause there. Okay, so these buildings are part, as I said, part of Bold Forward Unbound. It includes, Bold Forward Unbound is the construction of about 2.4 million square feet of space across multiple buildings. These buildings include parking, clinical buildings, ancillary buildings. And so after internal discussions, our team looked at what would be the best approach to review the collective whole as well as the individuals within the collective whole. Thinking about it in context of the project schedule, their individual schedules, and this goal of being completed by 2030. And ultimately, we recommended this approach, which is a campus approach to the site development plan approval process. We also, in reviewing it, thought the best approach was to apply the iconic building alternative language which exists within the Unified Development Code. So here is snapshot of the language that currently exists. It's the criteria that's in the Unified Development Code, or UDC for short. This language was included in the original adoption of the UDC when it was adopted in 2021, implemented in 2022. This language was a recommendation from our consultant to ensure that the code could accommodate projects that don't neatly fit within existing zoning types, allow for intentional design flexibility, allow for innovation, or allow space for unique buildings to be designed, but still maintaining alignment with our UDC design standards. So tonight we're requesting approval of 2 site plan developments. We'll be coming forward to you in the future for 2 more, but that will be after the first of the year. The 2 site development plan agreements that we're asking for are related to what we call the North Arrival Project. It is the top red circled building that you see on the graphic. There's some description of what is included in the North Arrival Center. It's exactly what it says. It's where patients will drop off and be picked up. There's also a parking component. The south parking ramp, which is the building that is circled on the bottom half of that graphic, the red circle, is just what it says. It is a parking ramp for about 500 vehicles to be located as part of this campus. And that is the 2 agreements that we're asking for your approval this evening. So what do these agreements do? So it's been a lot of really great work, and the highlights are, as I've indicated, provide an initial design framework for all of the work that's happening as part of Bold Forward Unbound, including these 2 buildings. It looks at it from an iconic campus plan, and in doing so, it accounts for private site and iconic building design items like facade treatments, landscaping on private property, but it also includes site plan development plans, usually have a public realm component. And so this also accounts for public site design items such as landscaping on the public right-of-way. Creates a mechanism for some conditional approval so that construction can proceed while we continue to evolve and finalize and approve the final design and vision that you would normally see a site development plan come to you as a complete site development plan. However, if we were to wait for the full site development plan to be completed, it would not come to you, would not be approved until the end of next year. So that would dramatically impact the schedule and the timing and sequencing of all of the pieces of the Bold Forward Unbound project. So this allows for construction to proceed while we're still working on elements such as landscaping that we have not yet completed. It does require that these design items be completed by a specific date and a mechanism if they're not completed for how we mitigate that. It does provide for them to be complete, for us to complete them if Mayo, for whatever reason, would not complete them, and we would complete the design of them, and it would be at Mayo's cost. There would not be a cost to the city. It also provides a funding source for the public site design items. So Mayo has an obligation to build public site design items as what would be proposed in their site development plan. If for whatever reason they design them but don't build them, and we are forced to build them, we would build them at their expense. There's a funding, the financial resource called out in the agreement that allows for us to do that, should that happen. We're not expecting that, but this is the belts and suspenders that we want to provide in this process. So that is kind of the highlights of the agreement. So what this agreement does, in short, in layperson's terms, it acknowledges previously approved design elements that we have, that Irene and her team have reviewed, and allows permits to be issued so that the work can continue. But it provides for conditional approval of an incomplete site development plan. So again, things that have been reviewed and approved, allows that work to continue and acknowledges that there's still more work to be done. It allows building permits to be issued, the next round of building permits to be issued, so that construction can move forward, so we're not creating risk with the construction schedule. As I said, it ensures that those public site design elements are built at Mayo's cost, and it provides a funding source should Mayo not complete them, and we have to complete them. So the other, just kind of as a wrap-up, we want to make sure that all elements that are approved and completed, it establishes a clear process and timeline for that. It establishes the conditions for the issuance of a temporary certificate of occupancy. Is not unusual that as a development comes forward, the building is ready and complete and can be occupied, but there's still things in the site development plan that are not yet complete. So it's not unusual for us to issue a temporary certificate of occupancy while the remaining items be complete. So this has conditions for the issuance of that. These agreements remain in effect until everything is completed. They do not terminate until all the items are completed. And we really believe that it supports both the timely delivery of the Bold Forward Unbound projects while preserving the city's regulatory authority around the approval process for these buildings. And so with that, I will pause and happy to answer questions or phone a friend with Ms. Woodward and Ms. Tierney online.
I have a question to start us off. I do like the iconic campus plan idea, but I'm trying to get my head around it as far as how it works in practice. So, for example, it says the alternative design will create equal or better visual interest. So that sounds very subjective to me. And so can you kind of talk about that in real terms, and in particular, how the iconic campus will still look at the streetscape, the pedestrian level, and another piece of knowing the project, airspace. How does airspace factor into iconic buildings?
So there's a couple pages ahead of iconic building that refer to some of the building design elements. And so those are all of the items that have to be equal to or better. So it's really looking at transparency. How is their articulation on those buildings? How are all these? So there are no blank walls. These are just a few of the different items. So it's really identifying the iconic as it relates to building design. And so with this, given the structure that is Bold Forward Unbound, it really was best fitting under the iconic building. And then we really started to look at it as a campus-wide approach because of all the buildings kind of really need to go together. And so that's kind of how we led to some of that campus-wide approach of how they're all kind of interrelated and being able to look at it that way. But the iconic part, it really relates to a lot of the building design piece. A part of our requirements for site development plan also include landscaping. And so that's where some of those elements come into place of what is being proposed in that public realm area.
So a follow-up on, so what I'm seeing is we'll waive or adjust building design standards. So when it comes to like streetscape, are you waiving the need for breakup of pedestrian?
So with anything within iconic, it needs to be either meet those standards or be adjusted in some way. So there might be some modifications to some things, but in general, it needs to meet or exceed what those standards are. And that's what we're looking for in terms of the overall approach to iconic building.
Great.
If I may just add to that, our foundation to those standards are the design guidelines that already exist within the Unified Development Code, as well as the city's design standards for the DMC district. That becomes the basis of the beginning point of the review process, correct?
Yeah, the city design guidelines for the DMC were kind of incorporated into the UDC requirements as we updated. So those are all kind of taken into when we're evaluating any of those requirements.
Sounds good. Councilmember Palmer.
Well, I'm confused. The one statement you made, this isn't unusual, that it happens all the time. And so, you know, I'm looking at, landscaping in the Mayo Clinic campuses. I don't think I've never seen a more beautiful campus in all my travels. So I don't know why I'd be worried about whether or not they're putting plants or trees or whatever they're putting in. But you talked about phase permits, and phase permits for building code for a large $5 billion worth of projects, that happens all the time. I mean, we can do a CO for this building, this room and that room and this room. So this is nothing new. Why do we need to do this just for this project?
Sure, thank you. And I think what I was referring to when I said this isn't unusual, it's not unusual for us to issue temporary certificate of occupancies. It's not unusual for us to issue, for example, footing and foundations permits. So to issue permits as reviews are complete. It's also, quite honestly, not unusual as a project nears completion of development that maybe not everything that was reflected on the site plan gets implemented for a variety of reasons. And so for us, again, looking at this, as Ms. Woodward indicated, we have to look at these buildings individually, but then they have to relate to each other. So thinking about it as a campus in its entirety, we wanted to give you, the policy decision makers, as I said, that extra security of knowing that what actually eventually gets approved, because you're approving a conditional site plan without it being complete. That's unusual. That is not normal to approve a site plan in part and not in whole. And so we felt like the added insurance, if you will, of making sure that there is a financial security in the event that something doesn't get built, that we can step in and build it as represented and approved at a staff level. So
This is where I'm confused. We're talking about projects that are going to last 4 to 5 more years before they're completed. I know for a fact that if you build a rinky-dink gas station, that somebody from community development goes out there and looks at the plan and says these trees are here or not. We're talking about the Mayo Clinic and landscaping. If you think that they're not going to do above whatever they think they're going to do, then this almost blows my mind that we'd even be considering talking about this tonight.
Ms. Woodward.
So I don't think we're trying to say that the Mayo Clinic won't complete that work. I think what we're trying to do is make sure that we're following the same process for the Mayo Clinic's development that we do for everyone else. And for this instance, with some of the landscaping and some of the design, it's not finalized. They need additional time to complete that, which are requirements of the site development plan. And so in order to move it forward, to be able to issue building permits and be able to move that along the schedule, we've worked with the Mayo Clinic, realizing they need additional time to complete that. And we felt that it was most appropriate to memorialize that so that these are the items that still need to be complete so that they're able to move forward on their schedule. And we also recognize that it gives them the ability to have that time to complete that design, and we generally know that is going to be complete, but we felt with this level of project and with so many different people, and to your point, this may take 4 years, that maybe some of us won't be in those same positions. So to be able to document these are what we've agreed to was very important.
Well, you're confusing two issues, and one of them is landscape, and you're doing building permit. And I would defy you that name three buildings built in Rochester that is as big as what we're building. There aren't. And so we have parcel permits all the time. We'll do it by floor and by room, and they don't know what they're putting in those rooms. They don't know what equipment they're going to put in those rooms. And then you turn around and you look at the landscaping. So this is staff-driven? This isn't, somebody from the city council didn't say, we want this? It was staff?
I would also note that a requirement to be able to get to that building permit is that planning signs off, and part of that process is the site development plan. So in order to get that building permit signed off, that we needed to find a way to be able to do that and document that.
And if I might also add, yes, it is staff-driven. And it's driven based on our review of projects in the very recent past that operated under a temporary CO for almost a year because the elements were not completed. And so again, we are in a bit of uncharted territory here and looking at a collective campus plan. We're asking to issue and allow construction to proceed without a completed site development plan, but recognizing if we wait for a completed site development plan to move to the next step in the normal process, it's at the end of next year, and suddenly we're not at 2030 with completion. We're not at 5 years of construction disruption. We're at 6 or 7, because the impact will be longer on the tail end, and we wanted to avoid that.
But if you look at what we have for commercial development, I would swear that 20% of these don't have final COs on their buildings. That we don't have that. And residential is probably about 30% decks and basement finishes. We don't go back and get these people. They put a hot water heater in and they want to get a permit or sell their house. We had to show up 5 years later to say we're doing a heating inspection. So this is not apples to apples. You're talking about a company, downtown Rochester, who's a leader in the world, and you're worried about tulips and plants.
I wouldn't minimize it just as landscaping.
Actually, I think you can phone a friend here. I think Mr. Yetzer wants to
Councilmember
weigh
Palmer,
in.
if I could just weigh in on this, I think what the confusion is, like, let's take this project out of the discussion for a moment. You asked about other large commercial projects. If you look at, say, the Berkman, that project that came forward. When that came forward, it came forward through the conditional use process. So they had a fully developed landscape plan, fully developed building renderings, et cetera, when they came to City Council for a conditional use permit. The difference in this one is that it's a staff level approval, that they don't have those fully developed landscape plans, et cetera. So on the Berkman, they came and got a approved site plan from City Council before they were issued building permits. What the team is asking to do this time is allow the building permit, the footing and foundation, to happen before a site plan is approved. That's what's different. It's nothing to do with, I think everybody agrees, the COs will issue temporary COs all the time. Every big project does that, floor by floor, et cetera. That's not really what's weird with this one. What's weird with this one is the sequencing of the site plan not being fully approved before we issue a footing and foundation, and it's caused by the enormous footing and foundation that this particular project is seeking. That's why this is different.
And how many years did it take to build the Berkman? Less than a year.
But regardless, they had...
That's the example you're giving.
Excuse, we are not here to have a back and forth debate. Council member, if you have a question, staff will answer the question, and then we'll move on.
I apologize.
If I may, the only point I'm trying to make is, regardless of how long it takes to build the building, our ordinances are set up in a way that you have to have an approved site plan before you get a footing and foundation permit. So the Berkman received an approved site plan before a footing and foundation. That's what's different here.
Council President Schumer, if I may also add, like, we recognize this seems perhaps a bit unorthodox, but I wouldn't equate the construction of a 2.4 million square feet campus as the same as a temporary CO for a deck or a water heater. We're trying to be responsive to knowing that you as policy decision makers have to be accountable to constituents with the largest project in Minnesota's history.
Councilmember Miller.
Sure. Different question, just a small question on the slide showing an overview with the two red circles. Can you talk about the unique polygon shape of the North Arrival Center and what phasing beyond phase one would be?
So I think there might be a second phase where it goes up in the number of levels in terms of adding additional spaces to that parking ramp.
And should that happen, that would be a staff approval, a council update? Where would that come?
That would be a staff approval.
Okay. And why is that northeast corner cut out? It seems like a very strange shape.
There is not all owned by Mayo Clinic.
Okay.
That's a separate property owner.
And so when we talk about standards, public realm, et cetera, how might that parcel not being developed impact the public realm experience?
Sure. So I think there's a couple different things. One, there are going to be some landscaping and public realm around the building. I think there's also going to be some proposed additional public realm improvements, and whether that is tied to this specific, which isn't fully designed, so that's a little bit difficult to answer, or whether it's part of the overall other streetscape improvements that are also going to be done.
Okay.
Councilmember Keen.
Yes, hi, thank you. I just maybe have some confusion, probably just to see, when you talk about a site development plan, you're talking about for the whole Unbound, or are you talking about it for the north parking lot? Is there a site development plan per site, or is it for the campus?
So we have individual site development plans for each building so that we can ultimately look, but we're also looking at it collectively. But for this specific site development plans, we are actually doing individual buildings.
Okay, so it's not that we don't have the whole bold forward laid out, it's that this individual parking garage, we don't have a site development plan completed yet.
That's correct. There's a conditioned approval on it with items that are still outstanding that need to be completed.
Okay, and what's in front of us tonight is, in order to keep things moving, we need to approve this agreement that the city gets in. Again, and that's by the two different projects. I want to differentiate that we're not talking about waiting for the whole big project to come together as one big site development plan.
That is correct. We're going to do individual buildings as site development plans.
Okay. I really did like the section you had on chart 7 when you talked about what does this agreement do and what it doesn't do. One of the things you said in there was the public sign design. And I'm kind of interested in if that's something that Mayo is doing and then the city does something different, because we might use the term campus, but in my view, we really don't have a campus here. We have an integrated city with buildings that are the Mayo Clinic, but it is part of the city. Or is it the Mayo campus that they're going to decide how to do signage?
Oh, signage, I'm sorry, I thought you said site design.
So Mayo, in terms of their buildings and properties, will probably have a signage that they will complete that is not necessarily complete of how they're going to sign their buildings and what's on their private property.
Right.
And then there's probably going to be an overall wayfinding in terms of citywide, which would be a separate thing. But there'll be, throughout this process, there is ways that there's still approval of what is being proposed. So
Okay.
as Mayo moves forward with some of their work, there's still going to be the back and forth that we have in the ultimate approval from the city as well.
Do you think I have it loaded up correctly, that what we're really doing here is allowing things to move ahead without all the steps being covered?
That is correct.
Okay. And again, I'll just state it for the record. We should need to get a motion on the table here, but I think this is how we have to work with Mayo, just like we'd work with any other large. This isn't a separate process. I know that we're not going to get another project like this in the next 20 years, but that doesn't mean we have to waive all of our processes that we put in place in order to, help them move along. I think there is this idea of we still have this four-sided design. We talk about this landscaping and bushes, but I think there's a lot more underneath here than how many trees they plant along the either the public realm or their own property.
Councilmember Frederick.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve site development agreement with Mayo Clinic for conditional site plan approval for the construction of the North Arrival Center and the South Parking Ramp, authorizing a site development agreement with Mayo Clinic, a Minnesota nonprofit organization, for conditional site plan approval for the construction of the North Arrival Center and the South Parking Ramp as part of Bold Forward Unbound in Rochester.
I'll second.
Motion made by Councilmember Fredericks and seconded by Councilmember Keen. Any more to add, Councilmember
Yeah,
Fredericks?
not to make light of discussion tonight, but this is a great plan going forward with Mayo Clinic and their initiatives in the city. And I do kind of find it laughable. We're talking about shrubs and trees. I've seen Mayo do everything above and beyond in this community. I don't imagine that's going to change.
Councilmember Doring.
Does the final site development plan come to you at a staff level for you to see before it is approved?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes. We will take a 6 or 7 minute break. 7 minute. What? It ends
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve.
A motion has been made.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Miller.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, and one of them, I'm trying to figure this $20,000 out for Second Avenue. If we don't own it and the clinic isn't going to give it up, why do we want to spend $20,000 looking at this?
Mr. Sampson Brown?
I know the city council instructed that, but $20,000 is a lot of money, and I don't think that was mentioned before.
Councilmember Palmer, thank you for the question. At the time of the last study session, we did not have the final fee from the consultant. So we do have a fee now, and we believed at our last study session there was a consensus directive to city staff to go ahead and study the Second Avenue corridor as part of one of the several routes being looked at.
And then on Sixth Avenue, we're giving them more money to go deeper into the project. Why are the private owners not paying for this, and why is the city paying for this?
Thank you, Councilmember Palmer. Generally, there's two things happening on Sixth Avenue. A city led project called Reimagine Sixth Avenue that is being funded through the DMC, recent funding of work in the downtown. And also, the Mayo Clinic has its own Bull Forward Unbound infrastructure projects that have been under review by the engineering department, and some have been under construction for over a year. So we're essentially advancing the design of the city project in order to play catch up, to understand in more detail what the city's reimagined project would look like. So then we can partner with the Mayo Clinic to do our best to coordinate the work. So for instance, if the city wanted to install a light pole as part of its design, we don't want to have the Bull Forward Unbound project install a water main directly below where that light pole base may go.
Okay, and another question is, you have a cycle track. Is that going to run from Civic Center Drive to 2nd Street? Is that where that's going to end?
No, right now, through the tool design corridor concept, it would start at 2nd Street Southwest and proceed north, two-sided on the east side of the road, all the way to Civic Center Drive. Continuous.
That's what I just said, but.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said
okay.
center.
You went the other direction.
Apologies.
Okay, no problem. So I'm going to amend the motion to remove the 2nd Avenue portion and save ourselves $20,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Fredericks. Councilmember Palmer, any more to add? Councilmember
Well,
Fredericks, anything?
I know that there's a lot of people who were in favor of this, but I think that if you take the realization that really isn't going to amount to anything because we can't get through Annenberg Plaza, you can't get through the Methodist Hospital, why spend $20,000? Let's put that to 6th Avenue and make sure 6th Avenue is a phenomenally great street.
Councilmember Miller.
I'll just say I think we had this discussion the last point, so I'd suggest we just call the question.
Question has been called. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion fails. We're back to the original amendment, original motion. Councilmember Wall.
The $20,000. Thank you. The $20,000 was not a surprise to me. The 56 was, unless I read in the proposal that we always expected to spend that money. We're just spending it earlier. Yes?
Mr. Sampson Brown?
Councilmember, while that is correct, we would always expect to spend that money. It's just we're spending it earlier.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the item, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Moving on to council-initiated actions, we have action, but allocating funds for Salvation Army security needs and rental assistant program. Councilmember Palmer.
Yes, I'm going to make a motion to instruct the staff to enter into a micro contract with the Salvation Army to provide services for their dental and health clinic and rental assistance for $20,000 out of our 2025 contingency fund.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Palmer and seconded by Councilmember Doring. Councilmember Palmer, more to add?
Yeah, I think that it's important to realize that the city of Rochester doesn't fund everything like this, but when they have dental and health clinic and they're having some security problems, their new majors came to town and weren't able to get the funding, and we were asked to do this. In our packet, They have a description of what they would use the money for the dental and health clinic and also for the rental assistance. So I don't know, Dan.
Councilmember Doring.
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Palmer on this, and I would recommend approval of this action simply because it's benefiting some of those most at need populations of our community, and we need volunteers to service those members, and we want to ensure the safety of those volunteers so those services continue. So that's why I signed on as the second for this particular CIA.
Councilmember Fredericks.
I'm glad somebody else seconded John's motion here tonight, but I'm in support of this as well. The people that do a great service over at Salvation Army deserve to be safe as they provide a large need for this community.
Seeing no further, a couple hands went up. Mayor Norton.
Thank you. I just had a question about whether anyone had had a chat with Rochester Police Department about the safety and security issues and what their response was. I hadn't heard of any discussion.
Has there been any discussion? Anyone want to take this?
I'm in my discussion with one of their board members was the fact that they're having troubles at night with their staff, volunteers coming in and out of the building. The police department doesn't do that type of security. They'll go once in a while, but they're having troubles with that.
Councilmember Keene.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the work that Salvation Army does here in town. My wife and I go to their events and donate money. What I'm trying to get my head around here is in my mind, the city of Rochester does not donate money to different things. We support programs, or we like do stopgap if we have to. But this thing is reading more like it's a very specific to direct staff to fund as opposed to direct staff to see how we can come to bear or what the ongoing problem is here. The 20K will certainly run out in a short amount of time, and where are we then? So I'm trying to get like a better reading of, is this a donation to something? Is this a stopgap? I dislike the kind of policy where we start funding things that when you get to your favorite city council member, you can get help in the next couple months. So I'm trying to see my way through that.
Councilmember Palmer.
Yeah, well, I'm not their favorite city council member, but what they do, the understanding is that the city of Rochester does not do a medical or dental clinic, and the Salvation Army does do that. So that's something that as a city we feel is important. We should be able to help them out with that. And then with the rental assistance, they do that every month. They do a rental assistance, and to me, keeping people in their apartment or in their home because they hit a bump in the road is more important than anything else than to say, okay, now they're homeless, now what do we do with them? So this is a preventive program, and we do this with other programs, and so this is not this is a one-time ask for this year, and I don't anticipate it being next year.
Mayor Norton.
One more question. We have not even sure what the name of it is, but it's a grants fund through the city. We may be out of money this year that nonprofits can approach. Chow has left already, but her department runs that. Was there any money left for this year that could be allocated?
Administrator Zelms.
Council President, Mayor Norton, members of the council, the funding for 2025 has been depleted. Funding for 2026 will become available, I believe,
in a few
starting
weeks.
Soon because the budget was approved. Typically, though, that has not been for entities that receive other city funding, and so I think that would be the challenge, is that because they receive other city funding in different ways, they probably would not be eligible for this. But I would need to clarify, and I don't believe it's $20,000.
Okay, yeah, and Mr. Chair, if I could just follow up. The other one was CDBG funds, and Salvation Army gets some of those already, or they do not?
Not this year.
And so it seems to me this is a particularly good project moving forward for CDBG because it has to do with rental assistance and housing, and that's one of the focuses. So perhaps we can put that on our next year's CDBG consideration.
Councilmember Wall.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that's precisely part of the issue for this year. I read this, that the majors came to town a little bit too late and didn't understand the process, didn't get into the CDBG, and so I can support this as a one-year fix for a need.
Councilmember Palmer.
Yeah, I'll call the question.
All in favor, say aye.
Point of order. I don't think Councilmember Miller had spoken yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up, Councilmember Miller. Councilmember Miller.
Thank you. Just for clarification to staff, if this CIA is approved, what would we expect as far as a timeline to report back and understand exactly what this would fund and for how long? I see 2 areas of funding, but I don't see any sort of budget of, like, to an earlier question, is a $20,000 contribution funding a year of a program? I mean, I see something in here about a cost per month for rental assistance, and it doesn't seem like this can cover both items. So I'm just curious about how long this would support a program, to the question also of CDBG funding. What are...
Administrator Zelms.
I can't give you a specific answer because I have the same information that you have. How I would view it is it's supplementing their costs for providing these programs for the period of time that it lasts. So they're going to need to look at their entire budget to make sure this is going to be meaningful. What the motion and second were was for a micro contract, so expenditures under $50,000, so long as they're budgeted, which you would be doing by approving contingency if it's approved. You would be funding it tonight, and we would have to figure out a service agreement, a basic service agreement about what is the public use of funds, what is the value of the funds, how are they going to make sure that it's benefiting the 2 things that are listed here, the rental assistance and the security coordination. So it wouldn't come back to council.
Okay. Now, I'm going to remind the council, the question has been called.
Yep.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Mr. Spindler-Craig, could you read the ordinance first readings?
Thank you, Mr. President. The first reading, item J1, an ordinance amending various areas of the Unified Development Code as identified under text amendment CD 2025-001TA. Moving on to the second readings, item K1, an ordinance amending section 2-1-2 of chapter 2-1 of title 2 of the Rochester Code of Ordinances, establishing fees and charges for licenses, permits, services, and other charges provided by the city of Rochester.
Is there a motion on this?
Move approval.
Second.
I didn't hear, was that Keen? Councilmember Keen, moved by Councilmember Keen, seconded by Councilmember Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Item K2, an ordinance repealing in whole and replacing with a new Chapter 8-11 of Title 8 of the Rochester Code of Ordinances relating to special events.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Miller, seconded by Councilmember Doring. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. We have no tabled items. I have not received any other business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Good night. We are adjourned.
Good night, Gracie.